Hello everybody, good to see you all again. I know I'm not showing myself in the beginning of this first one. That's because I'm tired of shooting with the webcam that I have. The quality just is not what I would like it to be. So I gotta figure out a different way of shooting the intros while still being able to see me. That's still a format that I want to keep, but just probably for a couple of videos, I'm gonna just leave it as it is with my audio only playing and something playing in the background. Anyways, everybody, we're gonna go ahead and do, well, as you could tell in the title of this video, we're gonna go ahead and do part 2 to I Used to Be a Teacher. So, if you all enjoyed part 1, believe me, part 2 is gonna start ramping it up a bit. So go ahead, sit back, relax, get your favorite drink, get a little bite to eat, and enjoy. So on the first day of class, when I spotted a wry grin that could only belong to the nightmare child I'd heard about just a week prior, my voice hitched a bit, and I stumbled over my words a little, but I collected myself, and the rest of the class proceeded smoothly. As I dismissed the kids, Thompson asked, "How'd that first class go?" "They were great," I told her, and the old teacher smiled, but something in her expression said, "Oh, just you wait." And it didn't take long. "Enough!" I yelled, and the kids barely even noticed. "Y'all are going to be in high school next year, and you're just acting like a bunch of little punks." Laughter erupted from the front row. I had assigned Jacob to a seat far away from his cronies, and they started sitting together again a few days later and wouldn't respond when I asked them to move. "Russo looks bright red, y'all," called out a boy seated to Jacob's left. "You ever see those old-timey cartoons where the pig has steam coming out of his ears? That's what Russo's looking like right now." Laughter erupted again, and the boy looked to Jacob, who gave his approval with a silent fist bump. A few rows back, another kid made a sound like a tea kettle whistling. Jacob let out a short, barking laugh, and the whistler glowed. I didn't know what to do, so I gave up and crossed the room to sit heavily at the teacher's desk in the corner, and not a single child was working. Actually, there was one. Toward the back of the class, a small girl with deep black hair. So black it was almost blue, worked dutifully and silently. I watched her finish the final line on the paper and then pull out a book and just began reading silently and blissfully, indifferent to the chaos around her. Laura. Teachers aren't supposed to have favorites, but we do, of course. And Laura had quickly become mine. Still, though, my breath hitched and a lump formed in my throat. The beginning of tears stung my eyes, and I let my head fall into my hands before any of the kids could see. "This is why you haven't got laid in 3 months. The voice came to my left. I was so shocked by the statement, it felt so incredulous in the setting, that I sputtered and looked up, responding involuntarily before I could so much as take a breath. "What?" "'Cause you're a little bitch." I found beady, dark eyes, a pale birthmark over one of them, gazing impassively back at me. "What did you just say to me?" "It's why Alden dumped you." Jacob stared back with ever-present, all-knowing. "I bet you cried then, too." His friends quieted and pointed my way. White-hot fury burned in my chest, and before I could think, a growl ripped from my chest, and I said, "You little shit." I leapt to my feet and crossed the short distance to Jacob's desk and put both of my hands on the surface, leaning forward until my face was inches from his own. I said again, more slowly this time, "You little shit." I let the sentence trail off. Silence had settled over the classroom. 30-some pairs of eyes bored into me. and perhaps the first time since the first day of school, the kids looked on rapt with attention. I stepped back and sputtered. Jacob just smiled. Then the gentle chime of the bell spared me from any attempt at explanation. The students rushed out of my classroom and seemed to forget the incident immediately. I followed them out as Miss Thompson opened the door. The older woman turned toward me and spotted my red, flushed face and gave a sympathetic, upturned smile, and then turned to the rambunctious children. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, class transitions are quiet. Thompson did not yell, nor did she inject any particular menace into her tone, but her voice rang out with authority, and even I snapped to attention before remembering that I was technically also in charge. Quieter now, the students filtered out of my room, and I heard a snide voice chuckle. Little bitch. But I couldn't pick out Jacob from the crowd. I sighed. It's okay, mister. The small voice came from behind me. I turned again to find Laura. Bless that child waiting by the door. He does that to everybody. She studied her shoes, and for just a moment I caught what looked like a beginning of a smile tug the corners of her mouth. But before the grin ever really materialized, her face fell back to its usual impenetrable mask. Even Miss Thompson can't always keep him in line. I thanked the girl, and Laura left for her next class. Then I crossed back into my room, closed the door behind me, and sat at my desk and just sobbed. Things got a little better. With innumerable late nights and plenty of early mornings and a great deal of support from Thompson, things slowly got better. And as the days shortened in winter, I let myself think I was getting the hang of it. But Jacob had other ideas. Okay, folks. Questions before we turn to independent work? A hand shot up in the back and I nodded. Let me get this straight, mister. I braced myself. You're telling me the British wore those nutcracker suits all the time? The class erupted with laughter. I joined them. I know, I answered, and the kids quieted as I started talking. They looked silly, but why do we think they would have worn red? I waited a beat and a few more hands shot up. Laura. Because blood is red, mister, muttered Rose from the seats around her. But I made a face and most of the noise quieted. Laura continued. It was, so you couldn't see if they were hurt. Exactly, I cheered. The girl gave her tiny half smile and I turned back toward the whole class. Alright, last 15 minutes are independent work. Let's make sure we stay focused. A few voices began to hum from the back of the class, but mostly I heard pencils moving and pages flipping. I smiled a bit to myself before circulating. Soon the bell chimed and the students filtered out the door. I stood outside to deliver a few high fives and chat with passing kids. Then Laura led Jacob out by hand, smiling, laughing, and by all appearances flirting. I gaped for a moment, and then I remembered that displays of affection like this were against the rules which I was notionally paid to enforce. Whoa, PDA, you two. They paused at the threshold, and then Jacob chimed in. What, you jealous or something? He smiled his knowing smirk, and Laura giggled. I just gaped. Then the two of them walked fingers entwined toward math class. And though their backs were turned to me, I heard a small voice say, Fucking pedo. And I could only stare, mouth hanging open as Kelly let them in. The door closed behind the two students and I shook my head, hoping the motion might dislodge the image from my mind. They always go for bad boys. Thompson shook her head from the doorway across the hall and gave me a knowing smile. I failed to summon a response though, and the old teacher retreated back to her desk, letting the door swing shut behind her. I chuckled a bit and crossed back to my own desk, and I had about an hour and 10 minutes worth of free period to accomplish the day's non-instructional work if I didn't want to stay after school. With a sigh, I pulled the sandwich I'd purchased on the way to work from my bag. It had come partially unwrapped at some point, and it took a moment to reassemble. I bit into it and began carving away at the pile of independent work from the week prior. The first assignment at the top of the ungraded pile bore the name Jacob in jagged, angular handwriting, and it was otherwise completely blank. I marked the paper with a big red 0 and continued into the pile. I'd gotten through about 6 assignments and the entire sandwich when I started to feel a tickle in my throat. I coughed a bit, but thought little of it. A few assignments later, though, the tickle spread throughout my mouth. I took a deep breath and a telltale wheeze rattled deep in my chest. Fuck. Within seconds, I could barely swallow and my face grew swollen and warm. I rifled through the drawers of my desk. Pens, papers, notes, and other office supplies clattered to the floor. Where had I put my EpiPen? I knew I'd dropped one in the drawers on the first day of school. I had enough close calls to keep one with me about everywhere. My breath grew labored and my heart pounded. The bottom drawer on the right, I yanked it open. It was empty. I couldn't get any air. I knew I'd put it in there. I remember doing it right before Thompson made a jerk-off joke, but the drawer was empty. The world blurred as I scrambled through the desk's other drawers, but the EpiPen was nowhere to be found. Dark corners at the edge of my vision narrowed to circles in front of me. I'd never had an allergic reaction this bad before. Where had I put my EpiPen? Just before my vision went black, I realized the answer. In black Sharpie on the bottom of the drawer, right on the wood, jagged, angular handwriting spelled out, "Don't call me names." And then black. Holy Christ. Okay, that's about all the time that I have for today's, but oh my god, this is coming from the NoSleep section of Reddit, so I imagine that, well, I believe this is a true story. So if this is something that actually ended up happening, this child is an absolute sociopath and a fucking killer, pardon my language, in the making. My god, I'm never gonna be able to get these videos monetized with the amount of cussing in them, but to be honest, I'd rather not censor myself. So, everybody, go ahead, make sure to stick around for part 3, that should be coming out fairly soon. I hope you all have enjoyed, and well, drive safe everybody, and I'll see you all in the next one.